Hello and welcome to And It's Live, the history of the Premier League. We are in the summer of 1996. Did life get any better? No, it did not. Plenty to get through as we set up 96-97. I'm Martin Ramsey, your host. I'm joined as ever by my two good friends. Adam Thornton, how are you?
Yeah, really good. This was I think I said this before, but this summer was one for me, certainly in terms of that. It was the first big European tournament, Euro '96 for me. Obviously, there was a lot of hype around it anyway, given it was happening here. World Cup '94, yeah, maybe not able to stay up late for the majority of the games, etc. But this was the big one for me, so it really does feel like things are starting to heat up for me, and it's not me just misty-eyed about things. These are games that I actually remember, live and breathe the majority of them. So yeah, buzzing to get into it.
Davey, you were a man very much about town in the summer of 1996.
Uh, aye. Well, yes, I was just coming up on 19. I was at university, um, summer, and so I had a summer job, a few quid in my pocket, and loads and loads of great football to watch. And I think it's a tournament that is sort of burned on the mind of everyone who was about at the time. There's a lot going on. We've spoken about this before. A real sort of meeting, really, where football becomes a part of the cultural zeitgeist. Football, music, even briefly politics, all connected into cool Britannia. And Euro '96 was a massive part of that. You know, you can't imagine the you know, you can't imagine any of that without the football. We spoke last week about football kits at concerts becoming a thing. That you know, soon it was de rigueur for a footballer to be going out with a pop star of some description again, and it did all seem very now, very current, very new, and very much the right side of fashion at that point.
Indeed, it was. And Euro '96, we'll start there because there's no question it bleeds into this season. There is this wave of optimism in the English game. People still have it in their bloodstream as we kick this season off. And David, you mentioned even politics crossing over. That famous kind of conversation, you know, Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell were at the semi-final of Euro '96, kind of worrying that if England won and then went on to win the tournament, there might be a big upswell in support, and could John Major almost kind of conceivably ride that out, or would indeed the eventual Labour majority be nowhere near as big as they maybe anticipated? So all that's very much in the mix. It was a cultural event, even if
Martin,
the football wasn't all
I, I don't think in 1996, truck in 1997, I think John Major could have arranged for everybody to play in that final, and the Conservatives were not getting voted in that following year.
And yet the nerves were there, which just tells
Of
you
course.
you just never know.
Yeah.
Adam, you're what, 10? Little cherubic face, Milky Bar kid kind of looks. Kind of like, I imagine then what Italian Night was for me when I was 9. I vaguely remember what yesterday had in store, but I could not only tell you everything about that tournament, where I was sitting, what house I was in, what I was doing later. It is just absolutely etched in the brain. I absorbed everything. Was that Euro '96 for you? Were you just at that age where you just consume every detail of the whole thing?
Definitely, yeah, 100%. I remember the strips, the sponsors, the players involved. I think it was the first thing that had happened, the biggest sporting event that had happened in the UK. Certainly in my lifetime. And obviously with the whole advent of the Premier League, that sort of cosmopolitan feel that we've been touching on over the last few episodes, with Bullet coming in and all that sort of stuff. That was alien. Certainly for me. We seen a lot of foreign players at Rangers. We had seen a lot of foreign players at Rangers at this point, but it was more players on the global stage. Obviously, being a Rangers fan, we had Paul Gascoigne there, not playing for Scotland, obviously playing for someone else. So all these little subplots that sort of wound it together just made it what it was for me. It felt like a party. It felt like it was wall to wall sunshine for 3 months, and I'm very sure it wasn't. But it just sort of gave you that party atmosphere. I think that everyone was talking about it at school. You were organising parties to celebrate it. Things that hadn't been a thing really. Football's so that there wasn't that type of thing that I remembered. Certainly, I wouldn't really from Scotland. So yeah, it was a big occasion, and I drank in every bit of it. Yeah.
And it's commemorated forever in the Arab Strap song, The First Big Weekend of the Summer, which I can't believe is 30 years old this year. But in that, it's that weekend of Scotland, England, and they, as the song says, we were going to watch football, but they did a heavy night the night before, so they fell asleep and awoke to the news that the English had won 2-0. And Adam's absolutely right. I remember in my hometown, small town in Ayrshire, the pubs just emptying that Saturday afternoon just after the Scotland game. Everybody coming out just so disappointed. Why did Gary McAllister not let Coisty hit the penalty? Basically, was the overriding emotion. But I think that there was so much good football played in it. The weather was great, and I think that it did take on a shell. Plus, it had been a long time since there'd been a major tournament in the UK, albeit this one was exclusively in England. Since then, they've been back. That they've been held all around the country. So yeah, it was huge, and I think that there was also this sense. There was an element of a show that was very popular at the time, Martin, called Supermarket Sweep, which, as a student, obviously.
Didn't see that getting into the show this week, but there we are.
Well, hey, listen, as a student, you saw supermarkets. Daytime TV was your friend as a student back then. I believe they actually work them hard now that they have to pay for their courses, but back then it was 6 hours a week mainly. But I think a lot of clubs, not just in England, I think, Rangers and Celtic were looking at the Euros and saying, oh, I like him. He would be good. And there was a sense of, rather than, even as you boys mentioned there, Italia 90, it was like, right, once the Italian clubs have all decided who they want, then we can maybe come in and get one or two of these guys. It wasn't like that by 96. By 96, it was, they would come to the UK. It wasn't outlandish. And of course, as we're about to discuss, several clubs did.
What if we just finish on Euro 96 before we get into the business of the summer? What is interesting is how insular it still is. The story's all about England football coming home. This basically homecoming in many respects. England back at the kind of heart of European football and all of that. And for those games, Wembley always sold out, and the kind of thing sweeping the nation. But if you look just 2 years before in the States, the World Cup, just about every game is a sellout. The crowds are absolutely massive for USA 94. Not exactly a footballing hotbed, a soccer hotbed, and yet they came to see everything. 20-odd thousand to see Bulgaria versus Romania. Two big players in the previous World Cup, Hadji and Stoichkov as well. It hasn't quite taken hold. The wider game hasn't quite taken hold of England yet.
No,
Adam. It's still just about on these Fair Isles. It's going to change soon, very soon, in fact. But there's still a remarkable lack of curiosity, given it's right there.
Yeah, and I wonder what the main reasons for that are. I think we've spoken about this. Things changed a lot. I was trying to think back there. Obviously, England not at World Cup '94, which at that time, in fact, at any time, will probably have an impact on your average UK football fan's enjoyment of the World Cup. If your country's not there, that quite clearly devalues it a little bit as far as you're concerned. Euro 92 was a bit of a non-event, really, wasn't it? They would have been as well not being there, really. So, but also, I think about, and I vividly remember watching World Cup 94. It didn't even enter my thought process that some of those players would be coming to play in England, never mind anywhere near Scotland at that point. But then to your point, fast forward, and I think what gives it an additional layer is Euro 96 is on your doorstep. It makes it that more real. Scotland, England, as David said, but then also, hang on, some of these players that have dazzled on that stage are actually going to come and play, and we'll see them every week rather than we'll see them every 2 years, every 4 years. So the two that stuck with me, and I'm sure we'll talk about them, but Patrick Berger and Karol Poborski coming because it was like they just appeared from nowhere, and they dazzled at the tournament, and then all of a sudden they were coming to one of the big clubs in the Premier League, and it just adds that extra layer to it. Where you're like, I can relate to that. I'm not going to wait another 2 years to see them. I'm not going to. They might have changed, they might have injured, whatever. I'm going to see them every week. So I think that all maybe stops it from being as insular as you put it. It's not just we're going back to 4-4-2, big man, little man up front, and then we'll see you again at the World Cup. It's they're here, they're now, they're coming in their droves to play football here.
I think as well, I find, as we touch on a lot on this, and how not only has football changed, but how football is consumed has changed in the since the Premier League began. And you're absolutely right, Martin. You used a phrase that it's not quite there yet, and you're absolutely right. Now, I would say at this point, you still have an awful lot of football fans for whom, if it's not their team, they're not particularly interested. They wouldn't go and take in. You don't have football tourism as a thing. You go and see your team, and if it's not your team, why would you go? Why would you go and do it? You don't have families going for the day out. You don't have people. I mean, now with Euros are going to be on, people from Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales will drive down to England to take in a game at the Euros because it's on their doorstep. Of course, now we also live in the social media era when people have experiences to share the experience that they're having with people, which you don't have at this point. But I think it is right on the cusp of it culturally changing from football fans are people who support a team and attend matches to watch that team, and it becoming more of a pastime, more of a thing that you do, with your family, thing that you might do on occasion. Now, as we know, I mean, one of the regular slights against the Premier League is that it's a tourist league, and it is to a degree. That's not a knock on it. I think that's true. Clubs want tourists to come and take in their game and spend money at the club shop. And that's why now, if there's a major tournament held in the UK, if it was World Cup 26 and it was being held in the UK, the matches would be a sellout. In fact, there would be people applying for those matches in advance and desperate to get there to take in a game, to experience it. I don't think we're there yet in 96. We're getting there, and the train is on that line, but I don't think it's arrived yet. And it even 10 years later, I think we would probably have found that the matches would have sold out. It's just this is right at the beginning.
Even 2 years later, if England had managed to get a double Euros and World Cup, I think that this is why it's so seismic. We're going to talk in the next part of the show about some of the transfers, which it did go up a notch. Sky money, the new Sky deal is coming to town soon as well. Everything is just turbocharged. Everything that's been bubbling away for those first couple of years of the Premier League, and then really last season, as we talked about, things it's starting to get a real head of steam, and now it's really roaring, I think. Adam, do you have something before we left Euro 96?
I was going to say I totally agree, but I think it's all of that. But I think we spoke about brands or the footballers being brands last week or the week before, we spoke a little bit about Cantona being the sort of trailblazer or the sole brand until your Ruud Gullits arrive and your Bergkamps arrive. But I just felt like this tournament created a template, I think, for, as David mentioned, that whole football as entertainment thing. Music, branding, merchandising, pop stars being involved, like all that sort of stuff that hadn't been in my awareness at all, and even down to like Alan Shearer, and we're going to come on to the transfer. But for me, like that is like a big brand thing. England's centre forward is summing up the financial excess, as you mentioned there, and one of the stars of the tournament, and that was again wasn't something I could ever have pictured 3-4 years ago, thinking how quickly that would move. As David said, it's not anywhere near the peak of where it can get to, but it is going very, very fast. I think it just all tied together. As exciting as that time was, I think this tournament was, if it wasn't the kickoff of it, it certainly was turbocharging it.
Yeah, it's just taking it up a notch. And even, this might just be a completely personal aside, but the interest I had in the Olympics football that summer, later on that summer, into the August, I don't imagine I really cared too much about it. I remember being quite into the Olympic Games. That just, it was in Atlanta, so
it was Atlanta, wasn't it? Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah, so it's just a nice time of night, whatever, just to kind of watch some stuff. But the football tournament was brilliant. Nigeria, incredible, and this young, he was called Ronaldinho then, because that means little Ronaldo, because there was another Ronaldo, I think, in the squad. But of course, he was.
Can you imagine being that guy now?
I was the original Ronaldo, actually. So just to stop your chat. But you were into it. You absolutely were into it. You were interested in consuming as much as possible, and well, that's just as well, because there was plenty on the shelves in which to do so. Next part of the show, if we can possibly squeeze this into a 20-minute segment, transfers and outgoings, and a lot of drama in the summer of '96. Welcome back. We're past Euro 96. We're over it, and now looking ahead to the return of the Premier League. We'll get to the players in a minute. A ridiculous kind of situation right on the eve of the tournament, 5 days before the league starts. Bruce Rioch is sacked by Arsenal. We kind of touched on it before, that Sergeant Major-esque approach to players rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. Didn't go on with Ian Wright at all. Couldn't really manage that personality whatsoever. And Wright handed in a transfer request after an FA Cup game, I think, in 95, 96. I think he scouted or transfer listed about 12 million players, and kind of moaned about, again, Arsenal spending. We'll get to what they did spend and who they did bring in, given that he got Dennis Bergkamp and David Platt the year before, but wasn't happy, and eventually the trigger was pulled on that. Adam, I'm interested in what you think. We know what's going to happen. We'll pick it up next week's show, because they will not have their replacement in for the start of the season. How could you? But they will by October, and he's obviously going to be a huge influence in the story. But Rioch's time, I think, is pretty interesting. He, by Bergkamp's admission, did a lot of work with him in terms of integrating him into the English game. Bergkamp responded quite well to him. He did encourage his players to actually pass the ball, which probably didn't happen too often under George Graham. There's a kind of handmaiden aspect to that, preparing the way for Wenger. And he was right about right. Arsenal could not rely solely on that man scoring goals. 32, I think, when Rio came in, so 33 maybe get into this season. And ultimately, he was correct about that. They couldn't win a title with just that. They needed goals from elsewhere, some younger legs. Nicholas Anelka, Thierry Henry, blah, blah, blah. We will get to that in due course. But Wright is used to playing on the shoulder, long balls, knockdowns, scavenging, not used to this kind of passing game, being a bit more patient. Had to adapt his game. He will play a part in that title win, but he isn't the main bit. He cleared the way after George Graham, a horrible kind of situation for Arsenal to be in. And also he gave license to fullbacks to properly be quite adventurous. I think there's a story here that just gets quite forgotten, understandably, given it was just a season. But yeah, it's such an odd one.
I find the different types of managers fascinating, and I find the stereotypes that we assign to managers fascinating, because I remember, I don't know, even a few years after Wenger was in position, maybe looking at various things and looking back at newspapers or whatever, and I think it's quite easy to assume that Arsenal were boring Arsenal forever until Arsene Wenger appeared. But certainly, if you were just looking through Wikipedia or whatever, or say there's a, I don't know, 15-year-old looking through Wikipedia right now, and it's conceivable in your head. You would look back and you go, George Graham, right? I've heard of him, stuffy manager. Not heard of Bruce Rioch, but I'm going to imagine he's probably the same type of thing. And then Wenger comes in, and wow, it's Technicolor and no Mars bars and no tomato sauce and whatever. But it's not the case, like you said. So that's why I find it really interesting, because there are managers out there that maybe aren't disciplinarians, maybe aren't your club builders, maybe aren't the most cutting edge tactically, but they are pivotal. They are bridges. They are a necessary interregnum, if you like, that you can't get to where you're going without crossing that bridge. I think, and I would suggest that it would be very, very difficult for Arsene Wenger to come in immediately after George Graham and do what he did. Not that he wouldn't get there, but just that I just think these type of things need that bridge. You could argue there's a very, very recent example at our club again, Rangers, where you feel like you want to go from one thing to the opposite thing immediately over a summer, and life gets in the way, football gets in the way, plans get in the way. Whether or not it was, and I don't know, maybe you guys will have more information on this. I don't. Whether or not it was a planned thing, I don't know. Not necessarily a planned thing for Wenger, but whether it was, let's get a safe pair of hands.
Arsenal fans do think that David Dean saw that as very much an extended caretaker until one of those fancier foreign types. Because David Dean is a forward thinker, right? David Dean is he wants Arsenal to be a more cosmopolitan continental club, and I think, judging on what a lot of Arsenal fans were writing about and have written about since, I think he probably did see Rioch as just a bit of a caretaker until the right man came up, and of course the right man did. He knew Wenger, and yeah,
Cruyff was in for it as well, wasn't he? Cruyff was getting heavily rumoured at the time. I don't know how. I know the bookies were in for that. I don't know how.
Just a lazy Bergkamp link, possibly. But Arsenal certainly were looking at that kind of thing. And such a great point you make about perceptions, and it still happens with managers now. But George Graham, very functional, very direct, not exactly cosmopolitan manager, but a very cosmopolitan chap. I mean, he's very suave. He was a inverted commas cosmopolitan player, right? Stroller was his name. Great passer of the ball, very loquacious. There's a difference there. Whereas the Sergeant Major, Graham was obviously tough as well in terms of discipline, but Bruce Rioch really overextended that, and yet he wanted his football to be, very, very attractive and aspirational. Call it what you want, and I think we get lulled into the personalities too much, or managers who were like that as a player, and absolutely the opposite when they come to.
It's just it's so fascinating because none of them are the same, and everyone has these preconceptions or misconceptions in your head, and sometimes it does work out like that, but sometimes it doesn't, and I think that's a really intriguing part of football for me, is looking at someone and part of anything, part of celebrity, part of whatever you like, forming an opinion on someone when you don't know them really, and you think that because you watch them play football, you know everything about what they want to do.
Davey, some love for Bruce Rioch in that transitional period?
Yeah, it was difficult. He was trying to do a lot, and as Adam said, maybe too much too soon. I think that now we're a lot more conscious, maybe because we've lived through a much more celebrity footballer age, that you have to manage someone like Ian Wright out the door, Steven Gerrard at Liverpool. You have to manage correctly in the latter stages of their career. You can't just come in and say, I'm changing everything, because they have too much influence with the support and with the club quite often. How many times have we seen it at Chelsea post Mourinho, where a manager would come in and he would have but he would not get on. Villas-Boas is the famous example. He would not get the players on board with him. But yeah, I absolutely do think that without Rioch coming in, and Adam mentioned there, Wenger had enough of the Arsene Who up against him. If he'd come right in after George Graham, you can multiply that. That would have been just through the roof, and it would have been really difficult for him to do that. But I think that you have to say Rioch bought well when he was at Arsenal, and this is in the days when it was managers who were identifying players. He brought in a number of good players, as you mentioned. He tactically tweaks things, Martin. He put it this way: Wenger doesn't have to walk in at square one. I think Rioch has pushed them forward and even made them more receptive to someone like Wenger's ideas. It's not as alien as it would have been had he been there. And then again, we've mentioned personalities. Also, if they had just gone from George Graham to, a manager who'd been there, they'd been successful with, they'd grown up with a lot of them, to Wenger, having that year and a bit with someone that they don't like, there's that relief, the ex-teacher is gone, and it makes it maybe a wee bit more receptive to it. So yeah, perfect situation in hindsight. But although David Dean was very friendly and a huge admirer of Arsene Wenger, if he planned it this way, then that's some nefarious thinking.
I'm not sure he planned it that way. I think it was just always in the back of his mind. He was never wedded to Bruce Rioch the way he would become wedded to Arsene Wenger. I think that's fair to say. It is an interesting one. I imagine, unless you have a force of personality that is just almost supernatural, there needs to be the man before the man, for the reasons that you mentioned. I think that's probably the conclusion. And who did Bruce Rioch sign that summer? Patrick Vieira and Mark Overmars, two players that just become synonymous
legends.
With Arsene Wenger's new way of doing things, and of course Dennis Bergkamp sitting there already. Funny old game. Okay, well, talking about signings, only one place we can really start. 15 million English pounds, Adam, for Alan Shearer, the star of European Championships, of course, certainly for England, scoring in just about every game. We talked about his league exploits in a fairly poor to middling Blackburn side by that point last season. There was a bit of talk, United, Manchester United, obviously, but it became fairly clear quite quickly, actually, that he wanted the romantic homecoming as a Geordie boy.
And what an antidote if you're a Newcastle fan, with everything that went on the year before. They want to play this all-out attacking football and end to end. I don't think it was ever possible, but a cynic like yourself, maybe Martin, would be like, okay, well, we got there. Sorry, we didn't get there. Sorry. Maybe we'll go out and sign a couple of defenders that will consolidate us, will drag us through these end to end games that we've been involved in. And maybe see where we get there. We've still got a very emotional manager. But if we add a bit of coolness into the team, then maybe that might help. They did add a bit of coolness into the team, absolutely, but it's at the top end of the pitch. And it's a doubling down on we will score more goals than you. So, I mean, yeah, what a time to be a Newcastle fan for sure. Again, I'm sure they had a similar feeling to myself watching tournaments, and then you're signing the player for that insane fee. It was only a couple of years before we're talking about 2, 3, 4 million quid players, and then it's all of a sudden the Sky deal that you mentioned, and everything just seeming to explode. And it's Jesus. I remember 15. I was like 15 million, like actual 15 million pounds. I don't think I'd even thought of 50 million pounds as a number before I heard that. It was just insane, and yeah, sheer excitement. And it's one of those things. Again, we need to look at context, because okay, fair enough. Manchester United at this point are now the Manchester United for sure, but Newcastle were close, and I don't think it's inconceivable to think that they were on the up, and that trajectory could go. So the homecoming piece, we always talk about a player going home and they're done. They're done. They came from a small club. They'll go and do everything they want to do, and then they'll come back to their hometown team. It must be such a big pull to be that guy who thinks they are joining a club that is at their level and climbing, and it's the right move for them as well, and it's their hometown club, and they're going to give him everything he wants. They're going to build a team around them. It must be a really difficult thing to avoid. So yeah, fantastic for both of them at this stage. Yeah,
Davey, on the fee, you'd been very articulate and very clear a couple of shows ago about the Andy Cole, or a few shows ago about the Andy Cole transfer. 7 million. That's what, 18 months? 18 months previously. It's, over double. It is the world record. The Ronaldo that we were talking about, or young Ronaldinho as it was then, going to Barcelona from PSV that earlier that summer for 13, just over 13. That broke the world record, and then Newcastle have topped that. He would of course do it again the following summer when he went to Inter. But this is taking things to another level, and felt like England, right? Well, they can compete then with Serie A and La Liga then, because literally no other club in the world has spent this on a player before, and he feels worth it.
It was a staggering amount of money, as was his wage at the time, £50,000 a week. £50,000 a week. These seemed like Hollywood figures. These seemed almost inconceivable. Even a couple of years ago, they were inconceivable. Look how much Blackburn paid for Alan Shearer just 4 years before, 2.2 million, and it seemed a lot then. Rangers broke the British transfer record in 1994 for Duncan Ferguson, 4 million. 1993, 4 million. Roy Keane, 3.75 that same summer. This jump is enormous, and I felt then, and I still feel now, that one, he had that great summer, and after a very difficult 2-year international period where he didn't score goals. We've spoken before about how Terry Venables said it doesn't matter, you're going to be the number 9 at this. But he had been so consistent, remarkable numbers in the league for a number of seasons. But I did think there was a sense of Newcastle, who had very ambitious chair people at the time. I could never quite work out. There was Sir John Hall, but there were Freddie Shepherd and a couple others. But they were very ambitious. They were very ambitious about what they wanted to do. And I thought this was I bet you they didn't try and get Blackburn down too much in the transfer, or they didn't, they certainly weren't upset about spending 15 million. They weren't sweating it. They wanted to do it. They wanted to say to Manchester United, well, look, you pipped us last year, but we're not going away. The other thing to remember is they spent, 6.7 million in the January on Faustina Asprilla. Right? I mean, the same calendar year. That's a lot of money. I remember an interview, I remember it very clearly, with Kevin Keegan, in which he was asked 15 million and £50,000 per week. That's £2.5 million a year. He said, we've got Alan Shearer for the next 5 years for £15 million, £2.5 million a year. He said, £5 million a season for Alan Shearer, I would pay it every summer. And that's how he broke it down. And he was, the thing about it is, I think you would struggle to find a single Geordie who doesn't think that Alan Shearer was worth every penny that Newcastle United paid and spent on him. So from that point of view,
number 9 at that time in the world. Ronaldo has the potential, but it's even. I'm sorry, Adam, don't hit me. But
I wonder where that was going there.
Isn't quite. He's going to be obviously this season. He's going to do that. But at this moment in time, he is. And there are obviously Vox Pops. We love a Vox Pop on the eve of a season. We're going to win the quadruple and stuff. But genuinely, that was the narrative, right? Oh, they were so close, and they threw it away, and Ferdinand kind of ran out of goals and whatever else. But here's the difference, mate.
Yeah.
Adam, you're right about my
sorry, just to cut in, but it also signals the death knell of Blackburn Rovers as a force. I think if you that's them saying we've had our fun. Everything about this indicates a shift.
Yeah, Blackburn Rovers don't invest the way that Newcastle invested after selling Andy Cole. Right, they are. Thanks for the fun. It was a great laugh. Newcastle should have been, Adam, looking to Serie A or wherever and saying, where are the defenders? What can we do? There's a lone midfielder that can just give us that bit of, because we've got attacking flair, we do, and we've got. I still believe in Les Ferdinand, blah blah blah. But then if he goes to United, that maybe makes all that immaterial. But it's an interesting point across the piece. Just looking at the bigger deals, Frank Leboeuf to Chelsea, Slavan Bilic, who had a good Euro 96, to West Ham. That's it. In terms of centre backs, it is not where these clubs are shopping. And listener and Nessun Dorma colleague Mike Gibbons, who loved the last show, he said, the point I really wanted to make, so I will make it for him now, this summer especially, is that everyone wants a Cantona. Everyone wants the one attacking player that's going to change their whole thing, like Cantona changed Manchester United, ignoring that there were conditions at Manchester United that then just needed a catalyst. You still need the fuel. You still need everything else underneath for that catalyst to really make the difference. But no one is learning that lesson, and how long it took Manchester United to get into a position where a talisman has such an incredible effect. But they're all searching for it, Adam. I mean, where do you want to start? Do you want to start at the Riverside and what was happening with Middlesbrough? I mean, Fabrizio Ravanelli has just won. He's a champion of Europe. Huge part of that Juventus side. A strike partner we'll talk about in a moment as well. But Vialli's older, right? I mean, Ravanelli, even with the grey hair, I might be wrong. I kind of felt he had more in his career left at that point. But this was, again, this is the future, right? Cell net on the strips, mobile phone, that kind of technology, new brilliant stadium. Juninho's already there. Emerson, this Brazilian guy, looks like he's from the kind of Soul Glow adverts from Coming to America. It's all going forward, and yeah, this was an exciting one for me for sure.
I think I was more surprised about this than this Ravanelli transfer than I was about Alan Shearer going for £15 million. That was a fee thing. This one was like, what are you doing here? Pretty much, because Ravanelli was great. We covered. He was more than great. We covered him on the Champions League shows. When we come to do a Serie A deep dive, we will cover him in glorious detail, because he's coming from the best team in the continent.
In Europe. Yeah.
At this point, like, it's not.
He's 27, Adam.
27. This is not like we spoke about again on previous shows. Sorry to keep casting back, but this is not Eric Cantona coming to Leeds.
As damaged goods.
David Ginola coming. It's not even Gianfranco Zola. As much as I love Gianfranco Zola, this is levels and levels above. I would still maintain that Fabrizio Ravanelli going to any club in the Premier League outside of Manchester United was a huge coup and a huge shock. Probably even still Manchester United at this point in time, if I'm being honest. It would have been seen as a signing that Manchester United should make, rather than it being what is going on. But to come to Middlesbrough, I have to confess, I'm going to do a bit more research into it before we come on to the actual meat and drink of the games, because how it came to pass, I don't know if you guys know, but we can dig into it in more detail, because it still, to me, just does not stack up. No disrespect.
It was money
to Middlesbrough at all.
That was it. Was money. There was several things. One, the Premier League. It's not established yet who the big clubs are going to be. It's this Wild West still. So you've got a young, ambitious chairman in Steve Gibson, who very well respected within the game and has done a lot for Middlesbrough, and he's got ambition and he's got money, and he takes personal command of the situation. He speaks to the agent. Again, something new in the UK, really, to this point. You would still contact the manager of the club first and then speak to the player, and he might say then he's got a rep. And he persuades Ravanelli. Now, Ravanelli is coming for the money. This is the first time where now we are used to it, that a player will leave a club like Porto to go to Bournemouth. Now, despite the relative sizes of those two clubs, this is not a shock anymore, because we know why he's going there. He's going for money. Ravanelli wanted to try England because of the wages that were on offer to a player like him. And I think there's also a bit of, do you remember when Robinho signed for City?
Yeah.
Although I'm not comparing them as players, but just somebody has to go in and be the trailblazer, and you can pick up very big wages if you're that guy, because they need to overpay at that point to get someone in. Steve Gibson wanted that dramatic signing, and he says to him, "Look, I've got Juninho, he's coming as well. We've got Emerson coming. I've got Brian Robson, legendary England captain. This club is going to win the league within 5 years. We're going to be playing in the Champions League." And at that point, it's not fallacious, because you can, he's not giving you a dodgy sales pitch. He's telling you this could happen. I mean, God knows Middlesbrough will chuck enough money over it at the next 3 seasons. And absolutely who's who of players that go there. But it's Ravanelli is thinking, okay, fancy a new challenge. He's looked around in Italy. No one's going to match what Middlesbrough are going to offer him. And he thinks, yeah, I'll go there for 2 years. It sounds fun. Middlesbrough, as he called them, which I think is a better name, actually.
Yeah, they should look into that.
They should look into that, Middlesbrough. I was stunned, though. All that said, I was stunned because, as Adam said, this guy was like one of the best players in the world, one of the best players in the best team, that Juventus team. if he pitches up at Man United, I go, well, that's a signing for that.
Yep.
I could even see Arsenal. The London thing. I could see Arsenal, big name. Middlesbrough. I didn't get it. And yet there he was, and this is the equivalent now to younger viewers on this show, and we're honestly not exaggerating. This is the equivalent of, say, Burnley coming up, who have just been taken over, who have been taken over rather. They've got backers, they've got money, but them coming into the Premier League and buying Lamine Yamal. It's that level of player, maybe a bit older, but someone like that. It was just incredible. Even then, the shock of it, because Juninho I was excited about, but he was still potential at this point. We thought he was going to be brilliant, but Ravanelli was brilliant. Ravanelli was a star. He was established. He was a guaranteed goal scorer. And there he is as he's pitching up to Middlesbrough. And at this point, I remember, Martin, you'll remember as well, in the broadsheet press, very many as the Northeast, the new Northwest. Are Middlesbrough and Newcastle going to be what we think of Manchester United and Liverpool as having been? Is this going to be the next thing? And it really did seem plausible at that point.
And Sunderland, who are just up with a new stadium
on the way, that's right.
As well. It's just it's all kind of taking shape up there. What could go wrong? I mean, they could have invested in some flu vaccines, but we'll come to that in due course. I mean, he's since called it like the biggest regret or biggest mistake in his life leaving Juventus. Don't know how much say he had from memory. I think Juve had been clear. Vialli was going. He was 31, and they were just cleaning the boards up top, and Christian Vieri came in. The Boxic come in as well, Zidane as well, of course, and Del Piero's still there. So I think he's probably told, but the surprise at 27, and given that club rivalry is just a charade in Italy, given
he could have
for every club in the league.
Could have gone to Milan. Yeah. Could have gone to Milan, could have gone to Inter, could have gone anywhere. It's money. It's his agent says, oh, by the way, I've just had on the phone. We saw it in this era at our club, Jonas Term.
Yeah. So Middlesbrough were prepared to go over. They were prepared to go over the what a sensible Serie A club would give. But he's just 27 years old. It's wild. Anyway, the other one leaving Juve then was Luca Vialli. David did flirt with our affections, but he wanted to go to London because he wanted to be in the headlines. And I think Richard Goff had said, well, you're going to get them here more than you will there. And he was another one that I think kind of regretted that move, at least in the short term.
Initially.
Yeah. Roberto Di Matteo is another interesting signing. He would have a very firm full stop on this particular season. And Frank Leboeuf, I mentioned before, Ed de Gea.
Give the moustache.
Goalkeeper. Yeah, he's a kind of odd looking chap, isn't he? But yet again, Chelsea are expanding now, and Rudd's in charge. Glenn Hoddle is now England manager. That's Shikshi football is. They still were.
They were so glam.
They just increased that glam thing, didn't they?
They were so glam. They, I think, were. If you were, this is an era of pretty cool music, as we know, right? Chelsea were the nearest, I think, to a very cool indie rock band who would have been. I could have met in Camden. Actually, the famous Camden Mixer pub. They could have been hanging it down there. They were just so glad. Ruud Hullit's there, right, as the sort of gang leader. And look at what he's bringing in here. And as Adam mentioned earlier, they already had one or two in there. I thought Di Matteo was such an interesting signing at the time because he'd been very, very good, for Serie A watchers. And to me, that he was one that it wasn't simply about the glam that they were going for. It really was the player with him. And he will prove why they did that, because he was a very fine footballer. Sorry, Adam, go on.
I was just going to say, I agree. I think they had the best window. And I think it's again, what Martin said, I'm totally on board with the clubs chasing the big signing. I felt like Chelsea got 3 of them, maybe. But it was important things that they needed as well. Goalkeeper, centre half, centre mid, someone that can come in and conduct the middle of the pitch, and then obviously as you mentioned, a couple coming in and attack as well. So yeah, for me, sensible signings there. It's not chasing glamour, but if glamour comes as well, then great. So yeah, for me, I think they had the best window on the face of it. And as David said earlier on, talking about people that didn't have a good window, have a look at Blackburn's transfers and this summer. They had the opportunity. I can understand Jack Walker. I'm not throwing tens of millions of pounds after this. They've made a hell of a lot of money on Shearer. There was probably an opportunity to go and spend half of that money and have another go at it. And yeah, just go and have a look at those transfers. I don't think I think they brought in about 3 players, and 2 of them were loans that never seen the light of day. So it does just show, as David said, where their heads were at.
We could do a lot of stuff, but I'm very conscious of time. Everton sensible quickly, David. Gary Speed, Nicky Barmby. Talked about Bilic. They're slowly turning into like a decent side. I mean, it'll change obviously soon, but that seems like a sensible kind of window.
Yeah, it did. I mean, they're very good
still
players.
Talk about windows.
Summer.
Summer.
I suppose it's a window of time, isn't it? If we want to be, we could say that. Gary Speed, terrific footballer, and we know what he done at Leeds, but also the presence that he brought as well, is that experience and mentality, super professional as well. So he was a big one. Nicky Barmby, really exciting, and look, Nicky Barmby, I think, is one of these guys who maybe doesn't quite. He doesn't have that game, does he? Really, that maybe people can look back and go, "Oh, I remember that with Nicky." But he was a great player. I mean, look at the clubs he played for: Tottenham Hotspur, Everton, Liverpool. He goes from Liverpool to Everton, which is probably why I don't remember him particularly fondly.
Big part of Sven's early England side, part of the 5-1 team in
Venables loved him. Sven loved him. Just a very, very good player, and it looked like Everton were building something there under Joe Royle, and it looked as though he was trying to evolve them a little bit, Martin Barmby in particular, from the Dogs of War thing, from just the raw physicality, which it worked. It certainly steadied the ship. This was a side that had been not just flirting with relegation, coming perilously close to it. But yeah, Everton's issue, and I think you can say this throughout the whole of the Premier League era, but particularly at this point, is that Everton see themselves as a destination club, and players don't. Players see them as a stepping stone club. And therefore, it is hard to build anything that's long term, because once you get a player up to a certain level, they're going to look to move. And it's always been this thing at the heart of Everton, the football club, is where Everton, the football club, sees itself and where the rest of the football world sees Everton. So there's always this tension there that makes it difficult for them to build something. It's why they have tried. I mean, it was the running joke for years, wasn't it? A Manchester United signing has a bad debut, and you go, can already see him going to Everton for 15 million in 18 months. And it's true, that's what they would do. It's like, oh, well, here is a player who played at United or who played at Newcastle. We will go and sign them. Tottenham have been guilty of that over the years as well. But this summer, it looked a good window. It looked a manager who knew what he wanted, who knew what he was about, who had the buy-in from the support after some tricky years. And again, you are looking at a very much then, they're only, 8 years away from the last title win. You're looking at a club who genuinely believed that their place was in that top 2 or 3 challenging. They still do, unfortunately, a lot of Everton supporters, and despite mounting evidence. But back then, it was far more realistic.
Liverpool, Manchester United did the thing I don't like, which is look at a tournament and say, oh, he was good, we'll buy him. Work for one, maybe not the other. We'll start with the champions then. Adam. Karel Poborský scores one of the best goals of Euro 96, certainly in the top three, along with Gascoigne and Davor Šuker. And he was brilliant. He gave, I think, Paolo Maldini, he made him look utterly dreadful at Anfield. Little did I know, actually, that Maldini's wife was, I think, given birth during the night. And yeah, anyway, that maybe didn't work out. Jordi Cruyff, I don't think was ever going to work out anywhere. How on earth does he follow that? But some decent Scandinavian signings and Ronny Johnsen and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer that will come in handy for them over the course of the next few years. But yeah, Adam Poborský, just is so tempting, but sometimes you're best advised to leave.
Yeah, I think sensible signings here. Ronny Johnsen, I thought was a really, really good centre half. He's maybe not someone that would come up on top 10 lists of Man United centre halves, but I didn't have any issue with him at all. A defender's defender, someone that would be a good partner for pretty much anyone, and
adaptable, play. Adam.
Very adaptable.
In the midfield if need be as well.
Midfield, yeah. Very adaptable, yeah. The others, I guess, now we have that thing of a good tournament and you're signing the key player. Oh, but at that time you were thinking, yeah, why not? That's amazing. Yeah, well done. Especially I think when Lee Sharp's going out for a pretty decent amount of money, you have to say. I think it was only about a third, three times the fee. So looking at it, you're thinking I've signed the star of a tournament, and I'm that's a good upgrade. Teddy Sheringham coming in as well to add a little bit more firepower, maybe sharing of the load there with your Cantona in terms of someone that can play in between the lines and maybe take up similar spaces. So yeah, no concerns at all. Like I said, it was really hard to look past Man United, as much as they maybe didn't steal the headlines here in terms of the big movers and shakers in the transfer market. Definitely them and Chelsea for me are the two that look to have had the most overall well-rounded window, shall we say.
What I think United deserve a bit of credit for, Martin, is that they go for Shearer, right? They think they've got him. Ferguson's spoken about this. Have the talk. He says he said he had two conditions. Could he have the number 9 shirt? Yes. Could he hit penalties? Eric hits penalties, but if he misses one, sure, right? Everything was in place, and he goes to Newcastle. Now we know why he goes to Newcastle, and it will be the age-old debate about, what should he have done? But they don't then go, all right, we better, for ego purposes, we've lost it to Newcastle. And the papers were full of it, the big psychological blow. They don't go, let's go and buy somebody for 15 million, for 10 million. Let's go and get someone who we might not need and don't want. And instead they sign, Poborský was a big name, but as Adam says, not a huge outlay for what you're getting on him. Jordi Cruyff was a big name. Wasn't his name, was his dad's, but he was
okay in a struggling, weird kind of Netherlands side. He scored.
He was okay.
But yeah,
he's not getting signed if it's not for his name. But back I bet you they sold a shitload of Man United shirts with Cruyff on the back though. But I love the two signings, the two Norwegians, because firstly, they're both brilliant. Ronny Johnsen's underrated. Injury hampers him a little in his time at United, but see, when he's fit, Ronny Johnsen is absolutely superb in his Manchester United career. And as you mentioned, that Martin, so useful, particularly in Europe. Just shove him in there into the whole midfield role, and he's excellent at it. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, well, what a special story that he is at United. We all know he was used primarily, or more famously, as a substitute. Alex Ferguson spoke to him at one point and said, look, I've had Tottenham on the phone. They're a big club. If you go there, you play every week. You'll be a sub here quite a lot because that's your role. It's not you kind of get in the team. It's you're brilliant. Stay here and win things. And he did, and he does. 1.5 million for the pair of them. 1.5 million. Stunning bits of business. But I think that is confidence of we are the top team. We don't need to run it and spend 15 million just to prove we can. We don't need to run it and get a player in to say, all right, Newcastle, look at what we've done. It's the confidence of our side who know we have a super squad already. We're augmenting it with good players, but we're going to be fine. We're still better than them. That it's not easy to see at the time. I think I didn't see it at the time. I won't lie. I was waiting on them going out and doing that 8, 9, 10 million pound transfer, but they didn't. And looking back, it's because Ferguson was saying Shearer would have been brilliant for us, which he would have been. He absolutely would have been. But when they didn't get him, they went, okay, well, we're not going to sign somebody who's not quite as good just for the sake of doing it. I like what we've got. And he was right.
They get it right pretty quickly. Anyway, well, that'll wrap us up, I think, gents. Is there any signing from that summer that I haven't brought up that you desperately want to talk about? There's just so much going on. Or forever hold your peace.
Gary Breen? No, just kidding.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. I always love the first episode. Not that I don't enjoy the chronological and the tactics of the games and key talking points, but I think it's always positive. Everyone's positive in pre-season. The fact that we can be positive once a month about things that happened 30 years ago is great. So yeah, thank you. Enjoyed it.
There is a skip in the step, isn't there? Cheers, Davey.
It's very much the Friday lunchtime of our look back. Yes, everything's in front of you. There's so much potential. I get the buzz. I still remember the buzz of that first weekend of the EPL that time, because who do I watch? You know, who are they going to lead with match of the day? There was so many players I wanted to see playing for their respective new clubs. And hey, this season, I mean, it maybe doesn't deliver on the same level and off the field stuff as the previous year did. I'm not sure any do from here on in. But my goodness, we're going to have a few storylines to dissect through this season.
Yeah, listeners, we started the last season with a remarkable match of the day. Well, a remarkable comment on match of the day that's still very famous. The first match of the day of 96-97, Jesus, we have got loads. We could do a whole show just on that, I think, next week. We'll try and move into the opening kind of months of the season, but it is insane. Ravanelli gets off the mark in spectacular style. The unlucky Alf of English football, Gary Mabbutt, comes a cropper, and there's the hardest shot I think that's ever been hit in English football, and of course a certain shot from inside one's own half. It is all happening on that front day, and it doesn't stop. That's 96-97 coming your way. Until next time, bye for now.